Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Hi and welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. I'm Ray Hagar with the Reno Gazette-Journal. We're wondering if it's time to panic over funding for public education. Jim Denton has the rundown.
Ray, this morning we'll be talking to Bernie Anderson about legislation that's before the Judiciary Committee. We'll also be talking to Paul Dugan about the state of education in Washoe County.
And coming up on today's Pundit panel, we have Dani Denton, Fred Lokken, and Daryl Capurro. That's coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
This is one of Sierra Power's main generating plants. It's right next door to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. These plants provide all the clean, reliable power that businesses need. TRI has 3 independent power generation facilities on site. For sensitive manufacturing companies and high-tech firms, this benefit is invaluable. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
Since its creation more than a decade ago, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has focused on 3 goals: preserving water quality, improving water conservation in Southern Nevada, and meeting the community's current and future water needs. Through thoughtful planning, responsible management, and collaboration, it's succeeding. As we move into the 21st century, the authority continues to embrace sustainable water development and efficient water use. That's our promise to Nevada.
So, who do you use for workers' comp?
Pro Group Management.
Ah, I've heard some good things about them.
Oh, you bet. Employee background checks, safety training, claim seminars. Oh, and here's the great part. If you have an issue, they work for you, not against you.
Sounds perfect. And expensive.
Well, that's the best part. They saved me 30%. I've heard they've saved others 50%.
Works for me. Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
You are watching Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. Today we have Bernie Anderson, longtime Assemblyman from Sparks. Welcome, Bernie. Thanks for coming in.
Ray, it's a pleasure to be here, as always.
Well, it must be you must be breathing a sigh of relief. Your Assembly Judiciary Committee has been so busy, probably the busiest committee in the legislature. How many bills did you run through so far, Bernie?
Well, we had 105 pieces of legislation that were referred to as during the Assembly session. So far, up to this date, we have yet to take the load of the Senate bills, which will be coming over here in the next week and a half.
So out of 105, how many made it out of your committee? 59?
59 pieces of legislation were referred. We've taken action on, either with amendments, which we're now waiting for, and over the next 9 days, we have to get all those bills through the floor of the Assembly. About 30 bills that we'll be operating on over the next 9 days. Some
key points of legislation here that you heard was the sex offender bills, and just recently we found out that the body of the girl in Florida was found.
Sure.
Maybe talk about the sex offender legislation, if you would.
Surely. Sex offender legislation is, we always think of Megan's Law, but there's the Weverly, too, pieces of federal legislation that require that. Here in Nevada, we're one of the few states that tier our offenders, making them report. We've tried to secure that through the central repository, which has been our big hang-up, really, in trying to get reporting, making sure that the public has information. This time, We're trying to get more accurate information out to the public. We're terribly, terribly concerned, of course, that they have accurate information to go with so that those people who are at the bottom end of our sex offender rating system are not adversely impacted.
Okay. Bernie, going on at the legislature now is this big rivalry between Dina Titus and Speaker Richard Perkins. They're both running for governor. Is this splitting the Democrats in two? Do you see a civil war in your party over the next year because of this rivalry?
I don't believe that either Senator Titus or Speaker Perkins are trying for that particular issue. Obviously, there are differences between them as potential candidates for the Democratic nomination, but both of them are trying to make the very, very best, make the system work for what it is. I know they're mindful of each other, and as they should be, but at the same time, the bottom line is both the Senate and the Assembly members have to work together, regardless of party, to get good legislation accomplished. And I believe that's the goal of both Senator Titus and Speaker Perkins.
Do you think, when we started this legislative session, there was already a rift between the Senate and the Assembly over, the Kathy Augustine debacle that took place. Do you think that this rivalry between Perkins and Titus makes that rift even larger?
I don't believe so. I think there's a traditional rivalry between the Assembly and the Senate that is healthy for both houses. We're both very, very concerned about our prerogatives. What happens in one house is not supposed to affect the other. That's what the checks and balance system is all about. So I don't believe that what's happening between Speaker Perkins and Senator Titus, their desire to be governors, is in fact, I think it's healthy for the state to have two competent people searching for the lead of the state of Nevada.
Okay, have you decided on what candidate you will support, Bernie?
I surely have.
And who is that?
Well, I've had a long-time relationship, a good deal of support with Richard Perkins. I know the kind of quality man he is. Not to say that Senator Titus is not a just worthy, great candidate, but I, in all probability, will be supporting Mr. Perkins.
Okay. Now, before the Assembly Judiciary Committee, there were some issues about smoking bans. Bans on smoking. You want to refer these back to the people as an issue on the ballot, and
right.
Could you
sure, the initiative
that?
Petitions, we have 3 initiative petitions that were in front of us. By not taking action on them, we placed them back in front of the voters. Had we taken action on them and not on one, then only the one that we had not taken action on would have been in front of the voters, and thus to keep the voters having the opportunity to make the choices that they by initiative petition indicate they wanted us to make. We're putting that clearly on their responsibilities.
Okay, now the legislature has already met 2 big deadlines. So do you think that now that things seem to be moving quite along pretty well, do you think that you'll finish on time in 120 days?
Well, the next 9 days is really the big deadline. We've gotten the bills all out of committees that we could. Now we'll see by Tuesday of next week what bills are actually going to go to the Senate. If everything goes according to Hoyle, we're going to do it. But you have to remember that we'll have reduced our load from the 1,100 plus bills down to a mere trickle of 400 or so in all the committees.
Okay, Bernie, we got to stop it right there. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll be back right after this.
For a videotape copy of any Nevada Newsmakers program, call 775-857-2244. The tapes are $20 each, including shipping.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years.
Reno's best dining values are all at one casino, the Pepper Mill. You can enjoy great savings on our popular specials. Pepper Mill's coffee shop offers daily lunch specials, low-carb dining, and all your favorite comfort foods. You'll find sensational lunch specials featuring Reno's freshest seafood, sushi, pasta, and more at Oceano. And early bird specials at Reno's Premier Steakhouse and Romanza Ristorante Italiano. The best values are at the Pepper Mill. Where are you dining?
When you need a new employee, how can you be sure who you're really hiring? A background investigation by Employer Links will uncover criminal records, verify the applicant's education, check their credit history and Social Security verification. An investigation will research professional licenses and driver's licenses and let you know why they're unemployed. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
Your best value in sight is here for you to see. From frames to lenses to eye exams, you're covered A to Z. Davis Optical, your best value in sight.
Davis Optical Centers, with 2 locations in Reno and Sparks.
Davis Optical, your best value in sight.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers.
Okay, we're back here with Paul Dugan, the Superintendent of Schools, the Washoe County School District. Welcome, Paul. Thanks for coming today.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Glad to be here.
Paul, I got a question for you before we start on education. In Washoe County, you've got almost 70,000 kids in this school district now, correct?
62,000.
62,000. I read a very interesting study over the weekend called the 65% Plan. And what it essentially showed, and it was a column that was written by George Will over the weekend, what it basically showed was that districts that take 65% of the total revenue and place it in the classrooms do far better than districts that do not. Do you have a comment on that?
Well, I think the more money that you can put into the classroom, that's kind of makes perfect sense. The more money you can put into the classroom to directly impact student achievement, the better off any district's going to be. So that would make sense to me.
What would you estimate as the percentage of overall dollars that are placed directly in the classroom in Washoe County?
I think it's right around that percent, to be honest with you. But also, to be honest, I don't have the exact percent. You know, there's not a lot of dollars that we have a lot of room to do anything differently than what they're geared for. So, but I would think we're right around there. But I'm going to go back and find out.
Okay, Paul, now let's turn to the Nevada legislature. You have been lobbying down there on behalf of education, and I was wondering if you're getting a little bit concerned about the status of these education bills. Number one, the lottery bill, which was going to help fund buying textbooks and reduce class size, that's been killed. The full-day kindergarten proposal, which is the number one on the superintendent's list, that has really received a tepid response from the Senate, although it passed through the Assembly, and you know, other things like English language learning legislation, legislation to help career and technical education. They all kind of, right now, they
don't look as strong as they
don't
did.
look. Yeah, yeah.
They just don't look as strong as they did.
And I don't think that's so unusual. It seems like as long as I've been around in Nevada, education is dealt with toward the end. So we're certainly not giving up hope, and we're certainly not giving up our fight for full-day kindergarten. We're also real concerned about the shortfall in the DSA that exists right now, the distributive school account, that we have to make sure that the legislation can shore that up. That's a real critical piece for us.
Okay. Now, Congressman Gibbons' plan is to fund Education First, the Education First initiative. Do you think if Education First was part of the law of the legislature right now, would you be worried about this stuff? I mean, look how the legislators took care of that property tax issue. What if that was education funding? We'd be home free by now.
Well, the downside to that is that we don't know until May, you know, what the economic situation really is. And when we get those numbers in May, it could look better than we think. It could look worse.
Yeah, but there's nothing in that Education First initiative that keeps you from going back and funding it a second time in the legislature if you find out you have excess money.
See, I have, mixed feelings about saying Education First.
Wouldn't you rather take the politics out of funding education?
Oh, absolutely, but I don't think that's going to ever happen.
Then tell me how you would do that.
We play the politics the way it is, and I think we're better off right now waiting to see what monies are available so that we know what to go after, than to fund first and then maybe, not be in line when the money's there.
Okay. Now, through the Assembly, the leaders of the Assembly are public education friendly. You get over to the Senate, you got a tough crowd. Bill Raggio heads the Finance Committee. Maurice Washington heads the Education Committee.
It's a tougher fiscal crowd.
Right. Well, that fiscal is what it's all about in public ed.
Right, and those people, Senator Raggio, I don't know anyone that has been a stronger supporter of education than he has been, but I think you're right. It's a fiscal issue. We ask for a significant amount of money because we believe we need it, but there's a lot of needs in the state of Nevada, and so we're in line, and they're looking at the big picture, and we're fighting for what we believe is certainly a critical part of Washoe County, of the state of Nevada, which is education.
Okay.
Paul, quick question I want to ask you about education funding, and that is, it's the old fund it to the national average, which, as you know, I have always opposed, okay? And the question I want to ask you is, can you show me where that has any relevancy? I mean, in places like Utah, they fund education right about to the same per pupil average we do here. They consistently rank in the first, second, third in the country. Places like Washington, D.C., it's the most expensive per pupil average in the nation, and they consistently rank towards the bottom. So tell me where the correlation is, in your opinion, between dollar funding for the national average, as was discussed earlier in this session.
Well, I can tell you what we haven't been able to do because of our funding.
Okay.
We haven't been able to do ever in the 22 years that I've been here to develop a program that allows us to recycle our computer systems, our old computers. We don't have the ability right now. We've always cut that from our budget because it's so expensive. We have a plan to do it, which would be $1.6 million. Look at our substitute costs.
You're talking apples and oranges here. We're talking about the national average.
Right.
You're talking about computers. It's like when this issue gets raised, all of a sudden they talk about textbooks in the legislature.
Well,
okay?
if we went to the national average, we would probably have an additional $60 million that we could use to do the things like I just described, increase substitute pay, do summer school scholarships for students so that they can have additional time. I mean, that additional money that we would get if we were at the national average would be significant. And
okay, Paul, I'm sorry to cut you off. We got to cut it right here. We'll be right back in a moment with a rock and roll pundit panel. Stay with us.
This is Nevada Newsmakers. Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The Resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seemed to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? Yeah, they do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, they saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
If it's fun, it's here at the Pepper Mill, the $100,000 video-themed slot celebration, with more winners each week, 100 random winners every Monday and Wednesday, and more cash prizes. $6,000 random drawings every Friday, plus chances to win up to $1,000 in free slot play on Mr. Money's Challenge. You'll have more fun with the Peppermills video-themed slot celebration, now worth over $100,000.
The slots that rock are at the Peppermill. Where are you winning?
Many of the materials we rely on every day come from the ground, and modern mining technology brings them to us cleaner and safer than ever before. To learn more about America's natural resources, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. Joining Jim and I on today's pundit panel is Fred Lokken, TMCC political science professor, Dani Denton, and Daryl Capurro. Welcome to you all today.
Thank you.
A story in this morning's Reno Gazette-Journal has University Chancellor Jim Rogers seeking $67 million more for higher ed than was in Governor Gwynn's budget. Fred, what do you think the chances of getting that money?
Well, it's a good question. I think with a surplus here, the chances are better, and I think our interim chancellor sees that. He's our chief cheerleader. He has to be out there indicating that the system needs more dollars. And one of our major problems in this state is that we've never funded education. We have this wonderful formula. And K-12, I think, has the same frustration. We've never funded the full formula, but we've only gotten at best 84% of it.
So what happens, Fred, if you go ahead and spend let's say that Chancellor Rogers gets to $67 million. And let's say that 2 years from now, we're right back where we were 2 years ago with a hole in the budget. Now, where do we then come up with the $67 million to fund it in the future when we have a problem, when we have a fiscal problem like we had 2 years ago? Then what happens?
Well,
it seems like we end up in a big circle here.
Well, in size the risk, I mean, that's true of every budget request. Under the circumstances, it's a growth state and it has to deal with that reality. We have more students in higher ed, there are more students in K-12, and the legislature has the challenge of responding to that. I think also the nature of the requests coming from the interim chancellor are initiatives that don't necessarily have recurring costs. They will address some of the past need that has never been addressed.
Well, Dani, let me ask you this. Higher ed wants more money. Public education wants more money. Do we, in our system of government in Nevada, do we pit higher ed funding against public ed funding? And do you think there's a competition for dollars between those two?
There's a competition for dollars amongst every program throughout the state. You know, you have mental health issues, you have education issues, you have all the different programs competing at the same time. Particularly, it seems to me, there's more competition in a year of surpluses than there is obviously 2 years ago when, you know, we knew that we were having fiscal problems and a tax increase was coming. Now it's like there's all this money out there. Everybody wants some of it.
Well, yeah, but the problem is, and Daryl, you know as well as I do, that people end up paying these taxes. You know, I love this idea of Senator Titus's, for example, of a freeze. I thought that was a great idea, a property tax freeze, until somebody told me that was her version of my getting my money back. Well, that's not my version of my getting my money back, but that's the problem. I mean, we've gone through this spend and bust cycle, and it troubles me. I mean, you know, I have a great deal of respect for Jim Rogers. I've known Jim Rogers for a number of years, but to go out and say we need $67 million more than the governor's actually put in his budget, I mean, that's a fairly high number.
Jim, this is an interesting time with respect to the legislature, because now the focus shifts to spending and waiting for the numbers to come from the Economic Forum, which we expect will be much higher than they were in the November-December expectations. And that, but so far I've not heard of any relief for the people who paid those taxes and created this big surplus that we're talking about, ranging anywhere from $700 million to $1.2 billion.
Yeah, the number keeps moving. It reminds me of one of those ducks in the carnival.
It's all conjecture at this point, because the Economic Forum numbers are not, which even the Economic Forum is more conjecture. So
the fact of the matter is, whatever's done with whatever surplus there is should be done on a basis of one-shots, where they are not recurring expenses, because you're just building it into the next time so that it's a boom or bust cycle sort of thing, and we're right back into where we were in 03.
Then I have a question.
Heard that there
I have
are
a question
about
for the
10
whole.
different bills out there that in some way or another would return the taxes to the people.
Okay, well, I have a question for the whole panel, and we'll start with Fred. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 0 being none and 10 being 100%, what do you think the chances are that we are going to get a rebate for taxpayers and for business people who paid these taxes over the last 2 years?
I hope it's a 9. I really think
Well, I
that
didn't
the
ask you what you
legislature-
hope it was going to be. What do you think it's going to be?
Well, I hope it's a 9, and it's probably a 4.
Dani?
Oh, I'd say that it's at least an 8.5.
I'm less optimistic. I think it's about a 6. And your question was back to the businesses who paid it. I think that's a 0.
I'm going to put it in at a 5. How about you, Ray?
Well, I think if the governor doesn't give something back to either the vehicle owners or the taxpayers in some way, we may be facing a taxpayer revolt here in Nevada. People keep paying in, and they're not getting anything out. It's time that Governor Gwynn and the state legislature share some of this surplus with the people who
Well, it sounds like Governor Gwynn is on that train. I just don't see a lot of people in the legislature that are on that
because they want to suck the money into full-day kindergarten. They want to suck it into more buildings at the university. There's a lot of good programs they want that money in. But we're going to have to, Fred, excuse me, I don't mean to cut you off. We're going to have to cut it off right there anyway. It was a very interesting discussion. We'll be back in 1 minute, please.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
This is one of Sierra Power's main generating plants. It's right next door to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. These plants provide all the clean, reliable power that businesses need. TRI has 3 independent power generation facilities on site. For sensitive manufacturing companies and high-tech firms, this benefit is invaluable. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
Your best value in sight is here for you to see. From frames to lenses to eye exams, you're covered A to Z. Davis Optical, your best value in sight.
Davis Optical Centers, with 2 locations in Reno and Sparks.
Davis Optical, your best value in sight.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years.
Okay, coming up tomorrow, we have Dr. Carol Lucy, who's done a great job with the Western Nevada Community College campus in Carson City. And then we have Pete Hall, the champion of No Child Left Behind legislation. Thanks for watching today.